Hey, hello, and welcome to the Event Marketers Toolbox. I am Chris Dunn. I am wearing glasses here. Not all three of us are.
Somebody isn't.
I'm with Blue Hive Exhibits, and I got a couple of friends with me today. I met both these guys on LinkedIn here, and the platform, which we will talk about today, is a pretty amazing place that connects people. So I got these two friends. One guy, the guy with the beard over there, Mr. Hamlin. Met him a year and a half ago. I believe you commented on one of my posts about a beer, and I don't know. Fast forward, here we are. You're co-hosting the podcast. We're actually getting together in real life for the first time next week, and just been great to get to know you. So, Brendan, who are you, and what do you do?
Well, thank you, Chris, and look how far we've come. So happy to be here. Yeah, I am Brendan Hamlin. I run Hamlin Creative. We're a production company, video, photo production company. We spend a lot of time in the event space. So that's trade shows, that's conferences, that's experiential, the whole world of live events where people are kind of coming, one-on-one, interacting with each other like humans do. And that's a special place where content is unique, and we really like to capture and create in that world. Just came back from a piece up in Louisville, Kentucky, where we're spending some time with some bourbon folks, and then have an AI conference coming up next week in DC, and then another conference up in New York later in November. So it's really a great opportunity to create special content, and excited to talk with Matt today and learn a little bit about his background, and how that sort of all comes from this connection point here on LinkedIn.
Yeah, awesome. So the guy without glasses, Matt Williams. You and I met a while back. I wish I had my custom sneakers today, because that was one of the first things that we started talking about. What you had gotten involved with a guy named Caleb Williams, not related, right? Who was producing these custom sneakers. You kind of became that marketing end for him. But anyways, I got these really cool kicks from Caleb, but it all came from Matt. So you never know where your inspiration is going to come from. But Matt, tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got here.
Yeah, well, first of all, I wish I would have commented on the beer to become a podcast host. That sounds like an easy intro, Brendan. Nice job.
Totally easy.
Way to run with that one. No, listen, I'm a journeyman business development guy, right? I've been in business development my entire life, whether it's creating business units for startups, typically founder-led, pre-IPO, and really identifying revenue opportunities through biz dev and marketing, right? On the flip side of that, I've been an entrepreneur. I've run my own D2C wine company, which is all keto-based wines with a nutrition label on the back of the wine label. I've had marketing agencies that have spanned from intramural collegiate sports to COVID agencies trying to get into medical facilities. I've always kind of lived in both worlds of working for a company and working for myself. And I've found over the years that getting attention is really the hardest thing now, right? And I think we all in the sales world killed it, right? Because we started leaning into automation. Everything was basically auto this, sequence that, and we just crushed everyone's ability to actually listen. And what I've found, and Chris and Brendan, you guys have found the same thing, is LinkedIn has become kind of that secret weapon for breaking through the noise and being able to whisper at scale through relatability. And so with that, it's kind of a long intro, but I started the Plant Grow Harvest Social Foundation, which allows people to understand how to use LinkedIn in a more strategic way. And it's kind of a blue collar approach to building relatability on the platform.
Nice. Well, so the name of the show is Event Marketers Toolbox. And I was telling these guys earlier, sometimes I get in my head a little bit. I'm 30 years in the trade show industry. We have a lot of folks on from the corporate event side and guys like Brendan. And we've also had a lot of people on who are, somewhat similar to Matt in that they're not really in the event world, but they are marketers, and they figured out what that bridge looks like. Because at the end of the day, as a marketer, and whether you're an event marketer or a digital marketer or whatever the case may be, or generalist, you're efforts are there to drive drive eyeballs and ultimately lead to sales opportunities, right? So everything that we're going to kind of chop it up with Matt on today is really going to be kind of the secret sauce behind building those relationships, and how do you use a platform like LinkedIn in conjunction, with live events, because at the end of the day, that in real life, human to human, face to face experience is something that I think all of us are, other than COVID, we're appreciating that face to face stuff as much as at any time, because of AI, because of the demand of, everything needs to happen at scale, and send a gazillion emails out there, and burn through these lists like they're not even real people, just to kind of get numbers. So anyways, looking forward to that conversation. Before we do that, just two things real quick about our sponsor. So I work for Blue Hive Exhibits. We are a creative agency. We're about 20 years old. We have a presence on both East Coast and West Coast. So I'm currently standing here in central Massachusetts, about an hour from Boston. I live nearby, and this is kind of where the company started and is headquartered. But we recently also expanded within the last few years out to Vegas, and we have about 50,000 square feet in Vegas, where we're actually, doing production. We store. We do all the same things out there at a similar scale with a smaller team. I like to think that from who's a good fit for Blue Hive. We are creative first. We are customer service first. We are kind of white glove service first. And I guess, throwing that out there and saying we know we're not a fit for every company out there. There's a lot of companies out there whose budget just doesn't really align with where we're trying to be, and the type of companies that we're looking to help. So you got to know who you are, and be okay with the fact that you're not a fit for everybody. But in that 20 years of business, we've really kind of really blazed a pretty impressive trail with a lot of great brands. And I still love it 30 years in, and still love coming to work every day. In addition to Blue Hive, another sponsor of ours is the group that's actually hosting our podcast and live show. And yes, this is a live show, so please check in, let us know where you're listening and watching from, and feel free to drop in questions as we go. So, and that group is Fist Bump. So we've got a producer. Her name's Juana. She's behind the scenes right now, keeping us between the sticks and making sure everything's good. I had gotten involved a couple of years ago with Fist Bump, and initially it was really kind of a LinkedIn coaching program. And I was working with a guy who's become a friend also. His name is Brandon Lee. And really that first year was spent kind of working on personal brand and in ideas on how to, stand out and cut through the noise, which Matt will talk about. And it turned into like, hey, Chris, this would be a great opportunity for Blue Hive to become a real thought leader in the industry. So we kind of leaned into, this medium that is the podcast world. So not only are we hopefully sharing really good conversations on a weekly basis with people, but also we're capturing this content, which Brandon can then speak to as well. And then we use that content chunked up into small pieces, and we use it to basically kind of continue to tell our story and promote the brand and the message, all without being a commercial for ourselves. So that's the goal anyways. And Fist Bump's awesome at it. So hopefully there's folks out there, you've been thinking about how to lean into this, podcast medium and create content like this. Fist Bump, those are the guys that you want to talk to for sure. So I've been babbling quite a bit. I'm going to kick it over to my co-host, Brendan, and let's start this off. We got some great questions for Mr. Williams.
Yeah. Well, it's I think we're going to talk a lot about LinkedIn and how to sort of prime the pump, so to speak, as you're going into an event. I know when I was first going to conferences and that kind of thing, it was years ago, you just kind of showed up, and maybe there was a phone call or two beforehand, but like there just wasn't the lead up strategy. And maybe you can talk a little bit about how the best strategies really start well before the event, and the event is sort of the culmination of that work you've done before you even get on site. That's kind of your point of view there.
Yeah, well, I've gone to countless trade shows and events, and I love it. And I think we talked about this earlier. It's just the depth that you're able to create at a trade show and an event is just undeniable, right? And that's where you're basically grabbing a coffee, grabbing a drink, grabbing a taco, just creating relationships with people. But that doesn't just happen, right? That happens based on all the investment you've done throughout the past year, the past 2 years, the past 3 years to kind of build that relatability. And that comes through right now, social, right? And it's not about pitching and trying to be transactional. It's about being supportive. And there's a big mindset shift that I think needs to happen between really the companies and the sales teams to quit trying to close business and start trying to be a partner. And being a partner is a totally different ball game because you got to have patience and you got to have creativity and you got to turn more into a marketer versus a transactional salesperson. And that's where, I kind of come in, and from an event standpoint, like the biggest difference I see is whenever you can basically create content year round that speaks to your audience, and it's not always about your product, but more about who you are, you become more relatable. So when you get to the event, whether you're in booth or walking around the event, people recognize you, right? And you actually have that instant connection with people, where it isn't like, hey, can I speak to Barbara who's in charge of X? It's more like, hey, is Barbara here? We've been conversing over the last year through LinkedIn or through email. Is she here by chance? I'd love to talk to her. And then you just get a warm welcome versus cold calling a booth, and it's just a different ballgame.
And people that are out there kind of like driving the numbers, there's the you get the cold emails, you get the cold calls, and they're just driving those numbers. It's so like, right off the bat, like when it's going in that direction, that, and I know I probably get to it. We all get anxious and get too excited and like, oh, how can I help you? And like, you kind of blow it, like, but how do you advise people to really start, be building that relationship so that you can have that familiarity when you walk on the floor to see Barbara and be like, hey, how's it going? And then you really do have that relationship.
Yeah. Well, first of all, I'll admit, I was a guy that loved to get an email list and blast it. I mean, I loved it. It was like pulling a slot machine. It's like, okay, let's sequence one more. Let's see what comes out of this thing. Right. And eventually you just pull that machine so much and just nothing else comes out. So I am part of the problem. And I think that's really was my wake up call, was like, okay, this is just not working anymore. There's a much better way. There's a much smarter way that's actually scalable. And that's where I kind of went into this whole LinkedIn concept. And like what you're talking about is, how do you become relatable with Barbara? Is you got to support Barbara, right? Yeah. And you got to support the people you want to work with. And that's not just a phone call and an email. That's following them on LinkedIn. That's supporting their social. I mean, you guys both know like how hard it is to post content on social, right? You're putting yourself out there. You're going to be judged on the public, on a public platform. When you can come in, even with a simple comment that supports the person you're trying to work with, it goes so much further than hitting them up in the DM and asking them for business. Like, they much more appreciate what's going on in the comment section. It shows them some support and some love. And it also gets you into their entire ecosystem for who they're working with. And I tell everyone, like, if you're looking to work with a company, don't focus just on the prospect. You got to focus on who you want to work with and everyone around them, because you're building social proof. Right. And that social proof allows you to get to that person, allows you to be involved with their solution set versus being a supplier.
Yeah, that's great.
That's 100% the game changer, right? Is thinking about yourself as a partner and a supporter versus a supplier. So that kind of takes me to my question, or my comment, which will lead to a question. So 30 years in the industry, started, in the mid 90s. I was a hardware salesman. That's literally what I did in the beginning. Is I sold portable exhibits, and we sold exhibits based on, this is super lightweight. It'll pack into a FedExable, rolling case, and you can set it up in 20 minutes. And that was the sales pitch on these portable pieces, which at the time was kind of what people needed. Which is great. And that ultimately transitioned several times, over and over again. But I'll go back, instead of 30 years, I'll go back 20 years and say, the pre-show piece was something that we talked about. Yeah, then you need to have some pre-show effort, but it was really about the booth. It's like, we're going to create a really kick-ass, piece of architecture. It's going to have light and color and motion, and we're going to put messaging on there and so forth. and the folks who happen to walk by, we're going to get them to stop, right? So, but the play really was like, build it and they will come, and you weren't doing a whole lot on the front end. And obviously that's changed fairly dramatically. I think anybody involved in events and trade shows these days understands the importance of having that pre-show outreach. We're spending a ton of money. You're spending a ton of money on putting that booth on the floor, sending all your people in, buying the swag. You're going to buy all the dinners. You're going to do all the things. How can you de-risk that situation? How can you increase your odds that your ROI is going to be met? Well, we can do a better job of building relationships up front and moving the needle on that pre-show piece, right? So Matt, I know this is an area kind of, near and dear to you based on kind of the relationship forth. Tell us a little bit about your thoughts on that. Do you have kind of like a 90 to 120 day plan kind of thing, or is it a little bit more of a looser framework, or what are your thoughts kind of that lead up piece?
Yeah, you just struck a nerve for me, right? And when you said just happened to come by the booth, right? It's like that always just drove me nuts. It's like it's your Mardi Gras of your industry, right? It's like you're spending all this money on creating this wonderful, beautiful exhibit, and then you're just like, please come by. All right. It's like you're doing some sort of giveaway, so you hopefully like trap someone to come by. It's like the amount of effort that should go into the pre-show probably should match what you do at show. In order to make it effective, right? I mean, you've got to basically put a lot of horses behind getting people to your booth to really showcase what you're doing there, right? If it's a product launch or a new initiative or just trying to get more conversations going, like that pre-event strategy really comes into play. And for me, I mean, there definitely is the 90 days leading up to the event. Absolutely. There needs to be some sort of game plan. And for me, it's always been using that one Mardi Gras moment or that one Super Bowl moment for your industry as that point of reference, right? Because year long, it's hard to draw a point of reference to your clients and your prospects because everyone's doing it, right? It's like, hey, it's in the quarter, or, happy, holidays. It's like, now you have a specific point in time, which is like, hey, are you going to be going to the Super Show or, Natural Food Show? If you are, hey, I've never been there. What's a good place to go get a burger? It's like these little things that connect from a relatability standpoint and building your connections based on that one point in time, which is the event. Mm-hmm. That's typically the hardest part within social selling and LinkedIn, is to find that relevant connection point that draws point of interest to both of you, kind of like that little triangle. And then also building relatability that's not pitchy, right? It's more of, again, going from supporter versus supplier. And so using that point of reference, I always reference that in any of my connection requests. I send a note and just basically referencing the event I'm going to go to, and then building up content that's going to support my appearance at the event, right? So it's posting content about the industry a lot more frequently, going up to the event. It's talking about the event itself. Obviously, hashtag the event, because a lot of people, I tell most people when they're looking at posting, don't look at hashtags, but I would say events and trade shows are still the one area where people are still going to search hashtag whatever event it is, right? Because it's going to pull things up. And I think, when you start looking at the companies that are attending, like there definitely is a strategy, right? You're going to know the attendee list. You're going to know like who's going to be going from an exhibitor standpoint. And from there, I think you really start developing your blueprint for connections, right? And again, I'll go back to your connections aren't always going to be your buyers, right? From a marketing and sales perspective, like I'm trying to build social proof and I'm trying to build trust within the entire organization, which enables me to get to the decision maker faster. Because I'm going to have an intro. I'm going to have someone in facilities or in operations that may be able to provide me contact to the C-suite. And the only reason I'm doing that is because I'm continuously supporting them over the course of that 9 weeks to 12 weeks pre-show that gets me into the conversation with Stan. And so when I basically go and see them at the show and be like, hey, Stan, I've been following you for a bit. Love your content. By the way, I've been trying to reach, Derek in finance. Is there a way I can talk to them? You got a much better chance of getting in touch with Derek that way versus just cold calling a booth or actually having someone come to your booth. You don't know who they are. So
Mm.
My strategy has always been to warm them up through relatability and through content and through commenting. I mean, I think building out posts is difficult. I think commenting is a lot easier in order to build trust and relatability with those connections that you're going into the event.
I think one thing, just to put a button on that, is also like it's not a 90-day start strategy. Like it's an all the time strategy, and then you're going to ramp up as you're getting closer to that event, right? So that you've already have these relationships that you're building. Now you're starting to pull them, focus them a little bit more into where you might be able to see them one-on-one.
Yeah, absolutely. And it just comes down to relatability, right? I
Yeah.
mean, even if listen, Chris, you do a good job at Brendan. I mean, we're all basically trying to become more relatable. We don't always post about work, right? And once you always post about work, people go numb. It's just like email automation. Like you're going to reach a point where people are like, all right, enough. They want to know a little bit about you, actually a lot about you before what you do. Right. And so that relatability piece really plays over nicely to when you get to the event, you become recognizable. I know we're going to talk about this in a minute, but you become more recognizable and you become more approachable. So it's not that awkward, cold connection. It's more warm, and it's more of like, I know a little bit about him because I've seen what he's posting about. And I know a little bit about her because I saw that she posted about this. And now you actually have a conversation starter. That's the biggest separator.
Yeah. I agreed. And my mind's going in so many different directions. I had so many things that I wanted to add on to that, but anyways, Brendan. So let's transition, right? So we talked about those efforts kind of pre-show during the show, right? So in my old days, it was build in and they will come. That's again, still not good enough. You've done the work to get people there ahead of time. Now we're on site. Brendan, as a content creator, this is kind of where you specialize as well. But Matt, just kind of tee this up. What is, I guess, take us into that next phase, right? You've been interacting with people online. You're building relationships. You've kind of got a shortcut to the know, like, and trust kind of thing. What does that look like from your standpoint when people are coming in as you're coaching your clients? What are we talking about at this point?
Yeah. So I always tell them, like, your events are going to just be a constant content engine for you. Right. And so, I mean, I even focus on, the relatability part is kind of like you're packing, right? So as you're packing for the event, have something funny. Like if you have foot problems, like show like your suitcase filled with like 6 pairs of shoes because you're constantly switching your shoes out. Just create something that's a conversation piece. I've even done something where I'm like, return to sender, and I'll basically write my wife's phone number here, and I'll do like a funny post as far as like, I've never been to Vegas or before or something like that. It's like having fun moments of relatability, that's laughter. And then once you actually get to the day of the event, pre-write something, right? So have something in the can. So you're not like trying to figure out a post on the day of the event. And you're trying to figure out, okay, where am I going to go or who am I going to talk to? And you run out of time. Pre-script what you're going to write about. At least give yourself some context. And then take some images, right? Images tell 1,000 words whenever you go into an event, and especially like a trade show, like everyone's spending all that money on a beautiful booth. Now it gives you the time to really illustrate that in whether it's photo form or video form. And then you've got some copy already pre-written before you get there on the plane ride there, write it out. And then you've got obviously your takeaways from the event, right? I tell everyone, like, make sure, like, as you're doing your walk or as you're in the trade show booth, what are the 3 things that are kind of like the theme of the conference? What are the 3 trends? What are the 3 problems? What are 3 things that you can basically illustrate after the event that really is going to hit home with people that maybe did not go to the event? And so that allows you to have a really good voice of authority, and it kind of gives everyone kind of a secret sauce of what was happening at the event, even if they weren't able to make it.
I think people also love, they love seeing things come to life. So they love behind the scenes. They love seeing the booth, the work come together, and so if you're in that sector of that part of the build, you can grab shots of that. I tell folks, to be like, we're not always the ones that are capturing that stuff, but to be careful about managing your technology. I've seen some really bad, user generated content, and I'm not sure that actually helps, and so to be careful about, like, the content's, it's good to do content, but also it's good for it to be authentic and be, to the quality to be good enough. If the audio is really bad, if the lighting is awful, if there's people walking in your frame, like, all of that kind of stuff can be a problem. Even if you're doing it on your own. We struggle enough doing it ourselves, as a professional crew, but trying to make sure that you carve out that space and make it, own your technology and master your technology so that it really does come through effectively if you're doing it on your own.
Yeah, Brendan, it's funny you mentioned that. So I'm thinking more of just like individuals, right? Personal brand, like going out there, and you're like, and that's a great point you brought up, because you can be flawed, like on the personal page, and me going out and filming some content is more raw. But when you get to the company page, like your employees are typically your front door, right? They're the front door to your corporate page. And when they get to the corporate page, it better be legit, right? You better have something that's a little more polished. You've got a nice video. You've got something that really kind of is edited to a point of satisfaction that makes you look like a really valid, like vetted company, not all right, I'm relying on Matt's cell phone to really kind of capture the essence of our business. Like, I don't know if I do that.
Yeah, but I think that there's a strategy to that as well. So it's like, you shouldn't be siloed across, your team shouldn't be all siloed, being like, oh, we all have to do content. Like, somebody should really own that and be like, hey, this is the plan. Like, Bob, I want you to do a thing about this feature. I want you to do a demo. I want you to talk to a customer. And, and like, just, it can be user generated, but it still should have a strategy, because otherwise then it doesn't have a focus. And I think that ultimately, if it can have a focus, it can perform better for the content that's being produced on site in the moment. We'll come in with our crew and we'll do overnight edits and things like that. And that's also a little bit different, like you said, Matt. But when you're doing it yourself with your phone, still having that kind of strategy in mind is really helpful.
Yeah. And I do enjoy a lot of the time lapse, like you mentioned just a minute ago, the time lapse of the trade show booths being created. Chris, you do an awesome job of that. Like, even like the sausage factory videos you put together, which I call them that. It's more just like behind the scenes, getting behind the curtains to figure out where all the sausage is made. I love seeing that stuff.
Yeah.
Hey, we got a question here from Michael. Juana, if you could pull this up, but I'll read it out. It's a little lengthy. So, any thoughts on publishing an event calendar? See us at the upcoming show, as an example, right? So, on company website, Michael's getting pushback from the execs who think that being too public with our upcoming event calendar will only tip off our competitors. I would guess that it makes sense on, like, how much information are you putting into the calendar, but I don't know. Thoughts on that from either one of you guys?
People are lazy, and I say that because I will get out there and I will basically give away all my secrets on how to build on LinkedIn, which aren't any secrets really. It's all just kind of blue collar. You just got to earn it. People won't do it, right? So even if you basically lay out the blueprint of all the conferences you go to, your competitors probably aren't going to go, right? But I think there definitely is this protected, like, closed vest approach to what companies are doing, that you need to talk about it in order for you to grow socially. If you keep it as a secret, people aren't going to know, and they aren't going to be aware of who you are. Because if you continuously focus on, okay, there's 100 people going to this show, and you're only talking to 100 people, and then you have like 10,000 people if you actually talk about it on social, like, there's a trade-off on being social first. But again, Chris, like you're talking about, you don't want to give away like the secret recipe, but you definitely want to be giving people an awareness of what you're doing to activate within your vertical, to be the thought leader.
Right. And I would add, I kind of reread it again. So the question was not so much like, what are we doing at the show? It's more about, like, see us at these upcoming shows. So, Michael, what I would say, and a great question, I appreciate it. We appreciate it, is, once you've been to that show once, you're like on the show website, right? Your space is findable. And unless you change up what those shows are on a yearly basis, like, your competitors they're ultimately going to be able to figure out what shows you're going to. I think it's a lot more important about how are you approaching it? What's your strategy? What are you doing at the show? move the needle? What type of information are you using to try to get people to come? And then how are you showing up and what are you doing on site versus just, we're going to be at this show, right? I think your competitors will find that information if they wanted to anyways. So I would agree with Matt. It's like most people are lazy. Are they going to use that information? I think you put it out there and you just like, it shouldn't be a secret that we're going to this show. Mr. Competitor, you want to compete with us? Let's go toe to toe. We're going to show up and we're going to bring our A game. And I hope you do too. We'll see where it goes.
And if your competitors are looking at your schedule for where they're going to be, they're following you. So,
True.
Right. who's leading in that scenario? So,
yeah,
right. Exactly. Good input. So yeah, if any other folks who are out there, feel free to drop some questions in. We were kind of still on that or in booth or during show time frame. And as you probably noticed, for those folks who are watching and listening in, is we're walking through the process in chronological order. Pre-show, we're here at the show, and then we're going to talk post-show too. But I'd like to kind of come back to your specialty, Brendan. So we've got an in-house guy, Tyson, who you've met, and we had him on the show, and then Brendan was on the show, and we've talked a lot about this. But whether it's bringing in a professional group like Hamlin Creative or having a strategy and having somebody internally kind of own it, like, don't miss that opportunity to capture that content. Take a lot of video, make a lot of, commenting and so forth, and catch it on your phone and audio, edit it up. Tyson does an awesome job. I take a bunch of pictures, I take a bunch of videos, I put it in a Dropbox or whatever, and he spits back this really cool video. Like he moves, he's got, fast motion and me walking and talking to people and so forth. And he adds a musical layer. The editing, I think, it's a lot easier than it used to be. And again, we're not trying to make it professional. There are professional companies like Brendan's who will do that, but just don't miss the opportunity, because once that event comes and goes, like, it's gone and you've spent a whole bunch of money to be there. So why don't you capture it, and you can use it during that show to promote for the next day, to put a post out, put it on social, send it out, send the video links out. So there's just, a lot of gold to kind of capture there.
I look at the work that you guys do, Chris, as set building. You're building this environment to come in, and it's beautiful. It is meant to be interacted with. It's meant to be eye-catching, and so it's the perfect place to be, doing a demo or doing a marketing leader talk, or have the CEO, share what the future holds. All of these kind of things can be content that can live on well past that moment. I also feel really strongly that the sizzle reel is not dead, but the sizzle reel needs to have a little more substance, a little more steak. And so that in there, having sound bites and having people talking about the why of the space is very important. Even a tour, this is why we did have this piece set up for people to come in and interact with, or this is why we are at this show. Like, that's really helpful, because when you get a little bit more substance there, I think it just lands harder. It's more engaging, and you remember it more. It's that ongoing messaging that you want to be carrying on well after the event.
Yeah, evergreen content creation is so important. All right, so we're at the show, and now we're wrapping up 2, 3, sometimes a 4-day show, right? So a lot of information, a lot of conversations and stuff like that. That post-show follow through, right? This is where the money, meets the road, as it were, or the rubber meets the road. You've invested all this money. If you don't follow up, then you're not getting the ROI that you want. You got to make that follow-up meaningful. I like to try to put ourselves in our attendees and our visitors' shoes and say, you know what, if it were me, I probably went to 50 different booths. I had conversations with all these different people. We probably talked about a lot of the same things. If I just call up and say, hey, it was great to see you at the show, what did you think of our booth? You may have remembered it was blue. They're going to be like, I don't know who the hell you are. I'm not even going to, I might've been really enthusiastic in your booth, but I quickly forget about everything that we talked about. So Matt, how do you kind of remain relevant? How do you stay in their mind, rise above the noise and all that stuff?
Yeah, I wish I had this document. You've probably seen one of my posts. I typically carry around I write notes in my phone all the time, right? And then I also have a little printed out spreadsheet for every person I go visit. I'll have a little note section, and I write something in that note section about what we talked about. And what we talk about typically isn't business, right? It's typically about family, hobbies, what they're into, where they're going next. And I always make sure I jot that down before I talk about anything with them with business, because that becomes a relatable part. And typically I try to create some sort of connection with us at the show, right? So a lot of people talk about San Diego, and then I also talk to them about where they're from. And we just have this instant connection. And that's what I reference in most of my video DMs. And I mention this because that's a really key differentiator with LinkedIn is like, if you go into a conference connected with someone and then you leave the conference to come back, it allows you to actually send a video DM that's personal. You can reference the conversation you have with someone, and then the facial recognition you can have when you send the video DM. It's a lot greater than if you're just sending an email or or leaving a phone call, because they can't remember the face with the conversation. The face with the conversation and the content hits so much harder, and it's a separator because it's hard to do. Right? People don't want to get on video like we do and basically put their face on there. So with the people that are able to break through that cringe and start sending those video DMs and referencing something just small, and that's not to be like a 2-minute video where you're pitching someone. It's a 30-second video of, hey, you know what? It's really nice to talk to you at, the hardware show. I'm not sure where you guys went after. I think you guys were going to, Nashville for spring break, but hope you had a good time. Let's be sure to connect when you're back. That hits a lot harder than, hey, I see that you guys recently got your funding, or we talked about, you needing this business. Like, hey, let's set up a meeting. It's like those things are going to happen, but they want to know that you care about them first, and the business will come after that.
Yeah. Hey, before we go on to something else, just a little networking tip, and a lot of folks don't know about this, but if you're using LinkedIn, you can actually, just pull up your site, and if you click in that search bar, it'll pull up basically your own personal code, right? So it just makes connecting to that person super easy. So they just pull out their phone and instantly, hey, are you on LinkedIn? Great, let's connect. So you're having the conversations, you're making your notes and so forth, but connect as quick as possible. And then, like you said, now I can do that super easy, super quick, video DM, because we're first level connections.
Yeah, it's a huge cheat code. Pulling out that QR scanner is just perfect whenever you can actually connect with someone on site.
Right. To kind of kick it into your wheelhouse, Brendan, I think also a really successful play that we've done in the past is if we're taking a lot of video and doing a lot of capture in our booth, because we also do shows as well as an exhibitor, which helps us put our eat our own dog food, as it were, and put our shoes in our clients our feet, their shoes. That's what I was trying to say. But if we get them on video, even if it's not really a comment, or maybe just, hey, we've got all of these great funny hats and props and stuff like that. When you reach out to them for that post-show follow-through, if I can show you a picture of you enjoying yourself in my booth,
yes,
you're going to really, I remember you guys had that really cool engagement. You were popping the popcorn, or, on our end, we're trying to figure out, how do we engage as many senses as possible? Because that's where the memories are built, right? So, Matt, what you're talking about is a verbal interaction back and forth. There's handshaking, maybe there's a hug, but there's laughter and so forth. Those are the memorable pieces. You go talk to 50 different people in 50 different booths. What are the things that are going to stick out? There's probably not a lot of them, right? There's a lot of forgettable things that are going to happen. So how do you create that memorable moment, right? So with you're talking about, asking good questions, taking good notes, and leading with that personal piece on the back end. How was the ski trip? You said you were going, you and your daughter were going to go to Tahoe. Little things like that cuts through way better than hey, you said that, you guys had, your budget was coming up, or your contract was coming up in Q3, and you might be open to a conversation.
Yeah, it's that mindset shift of supplier to supporter, And I would say that is the biggest hurdle that a lot of companies have to get over is the game of patience, right? Because so many people are just transactional focused, and I get it, right? We're all under pressure to grow and board meetings and, answering to this number and this revenue growth. But at the end of the day, like, your clients are on a different timeline than you, right? Once you start forcing the timeline on them, it becomes really negative for your brand, right? And once you become that brand that is begging, asking, pressing, you're the brand that's going to lose, right? Because you're not the brand that people are going to want to work with. They want to work with a brand that feels like they are heard, they're supportive, they kind of walk the same walk as their clients, and they actually know the problems. And then you shift the mindset of the brand becomes a solution before they even know they need that solution, right? And so you become more proactive versus reactive on the way in which you're approaching someone. And that happens at all levels, right? Even like with creating content, right? It's like creating content is something like on social, it's got to be either education, right? Which is basically, creating that voice of authority. It's got to be inspirational. Like, what are people going to draw inspiration from the post that you create? And it's got to be entertaining, right? Which is either relatable to you, an observation from something else, and your posts are just a conversation starter. And I always tell everyone like this is like, and I know we're kind of getting off point here, but it's like the point of the post is starting a conversation, and then you build the community through comments, and then you build the relationships through DMs, and you try to get people off the platform as soon as possible to do business, right? And that's really the recipe. And I tell everyone it's like 10, 10, 10, right? I want 10 comments a day, 10 connect requests a day. And if you can send 10 DMs a day, you're going to win. And if you just rinse and repeat that over and over again, you're going to continue to kind of see that opportunities present themselves at events and then post events, because you are involved with the entire ecosystem within that vertical.
Yeah, exactly. It's the long-term, the long-term game play, for sure is I think, the data suggests, and it's probably skewed a little bit higher for trade shows because people are going to shows for a reason, but the data would suggest that at any given time, maybe 3% of our total addressable market, right, our TAM, is in market for what we have to sell. That means 97% at best, is not in market, right? So even at a show, like, people coming through like, hey, I'm just doing some research. We're going to need a booth next year. We're going to need this service. We're going to need this product next year. So you got to take that information and make sure that you're not approaching them the same way that you would with a super hot lead, who's a guy or a gal who comes in and says, I have a need for what you guys are selling this quarter. We need to move because I need it. Right. So you're going to have way more people who don't need you right away. But so you got to build that relationship. You got to do the work. And like you said, support them versus you just nag them to buy stuff it's all timing, right?
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. It's all timing, and that's all just being supportive. And it's so much easier. I mean, and once you can shift that, it's like so much easier to be supportive than to be transactional on this platform. And that's the only way I've ever seen people be sustainable, right? The people that are strictly transactional just lose because they keep losing, right? The people that are supporters are leading with positivity, they're leading with giving first, and they're actually able to receive because they are the kind of the connector within their industry, because they are the ones that are pivoting and tagging people in a post, and it may not be related to them, but it's actually supporting their partner with content they may find that's useful. And that's whenever you truly become like in bed with the customer.
And where was I going to, go with this thought? We're going to start talking a little bit more about, building that personal brand. But like you said, it's that long game play. I feel like a really good example of how things can work and go right is pointing out that building relationships and conversations with people who aren't necessarily your ideal customer profile is absolutely totally the way that you want to do this. If you only focus on people who can definitely buy from you, you're narrowing that group of folks that you're talking to down so small, versus just being open to have interesting conversations and make friends. There's like an army of people who are on LinkedIn who I will probably never sell anything to, but anytime they see anything related to trade shows, they tag me in because we've had a conversation, and I show up, I not wanting anything from them other than like, let's have a coffee, let's have a conversation, and how can I help you, right? So when you approach with that give first, that was it. It was kind of like, make those deposits of giving into that account before you go to withdraw. If you haven't put anything in, there's nothing to withdraw.
And you're social proofing yourself, right? And when you're not just connecting with that ICP, and you're connecting with people that may be the influencers to that ICP, you're just increasing your chances to get the business. And it doesn't always have to be that prospect like you're talking about. It can be someone, like if you're talking to someone in marketing, it can be someone in operations, someone in finance, someone in sales, that if you create that conversation and that support system, whenever you need it, it is going to be there. You just need to wait and just find your time to make the introduction. You'll be able to read the smoke signals to say, okay, now the timing's right. Hey, can you guys make an intro to whoever my client is, my prospect is?
All right. Yeah, exactly. Hey, Brendan, there's a woman here by the name of Sarah Hamlin. I feel like we know her.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know.
Maybe she's your wife and business partner.
She is. So and she does a great job.
She does. She's a great connector as well. And she's always out there kind of just banging the drum and really kind of shining the light on a lot of different people. So appreciate you, Sarah.
And she is one of the people, and you can talk about this, Matt, too, about the personal brand versus. So I'm a sole proprietor, a small production company. It's me. My name is on the door. We post as me more than we post as Hamlin Creative. Talk a little bit about why that's important, because it's worked for us, and I can give you some examples of that. But talk a little bit about in your practice how you promote that as well.
Yeah, I mean, listen, the companies I'm consulting for, I typically take that bottom up approach, right? Which is like, how do you, in lack of a better term, weaponize your employees, right? And the weaponization of your employees is by building out their personal brand, because you're going to get far more reach on anything you do on a personal page than you will a company page.
Yeah.
It's just how it works, right? I think we're in this quasi voyeuristic society where people want to get behind the scenes and know, like, the founder led journeys are the struggles of a salesperson, are the issues of running a marketing department, are the battles of building a trade show, right? People want to know what's going on behind the curtain and really kind of understand that person. And this trend has become more like, I want to work with someone I can relate to.
Yeah.
As much or more than what it is they're actually representing. Right. And you'll find like people are starting to build businesses based around their personalities versus the business building the personality. It's like the thing is completely flipped. And so for me, like, I always lean on, you got to be relatable. Like, I can't, I sometimes will slip like LSU posts into my feed. So in the fall, I am typically trolled by at least 5 to 10 people a week on either who LSU is playing or who LSU loses to. It's not in my profile, it's not in my headline, but I talk about it, right? And it's a fun thing to break the ice and get conversations started about. But it becomes a relatable point, right? I'm not kidding. I probably received 5 or 6 texts, and that's not DMs, that's texts that I basically have connected with people on LinkedIn. And they've become friends from Alabama, from Georgia to Penn State, from, Colorado, that we're just talking trash on college football. And now all of a sudden it's like, I know I can talk to that person if I ever have a need to actually talk about business and get connected with someone. Yeah. And that's where this whole process of personal branding becomes more of like a friendship network that your personal brand has led to.
Yeah, no, I totally, and I'm glad you said that, because I feel like, Chris and I have connected over the last year and a half. It started with craft beer, and now he's coming next week to visit us in real life, and that's something that, had we not made the connection on LinkedIn and started the conversation, that, obviously that wouldn't be happening. I mean, and it wasn't a conversation about, hey, Chris, how can I do some video work for you? It was about craft beer. It was about family. It was about Boston and North Carolina and all of these different things that are unrelated to business. We did have somebody else on the show a few weeks back, Evan Babbins, he's amazing, and he's up in Canada. Through that process of getting to know him, when I was in New Orleans, I put a shout out to, hey, where's a great place to eat? And because Evan knew this woman, she chimed in and said, hey, go to Herb Saint. It's great. They have a great butter pie. We went there. It was amazing. And fast forward a couple months, and we're doing work for her now in a few weeks. So like this, it is an interesting way. It's like the best of what social media intended to be, in my opinion. I mean, there's a lot of trolls out there on the other platforms and things that are not so great, but somehow the people that are focused on business here on LinkedIn seem to be respectful of that. Obviously people are pitching their services, but there's also people that are really wanting to get to know each other, learn about each other. And then ultimately, if that business opportunity comes up, you know something about the person. It's not like, hey, how can we work together? It happens more organically.
It's the biggest unlock on this platform.
Yeah.
Right. And again, and I was the one that was the transactional guy a couple of years ago, right?
Yeah.
I was just trying to DM you and pitch slap the hell out of you, right? I want your business. I'm coming in. I'm going to get it bad. Yeah. Right. But when I changed that and I started doing more relatable content, being more supportive, and actually just building out a network, right, of friends, like that's when everything started to shift. And I think that's where companies in general need to have more patience with this, because now we're in this situation where you can't throw 10,000 emails through a filter and expect stuff to come out. Nothing's coming out anymore, right? And so the timeline for trust is now being extended. We just got to be able to have the patience to let that thing cook. And once you let it cook and you start letting your people be part of the brand strategy and part of the solution, you start to win. But that takes time, right? It's not a 90-day solution. It's a month-long, it's a year-long solution set you got to implement.
And it's also that even if 90 day, you can't start at 90 days, but you need to have had, if say you do a 90-day plan, you need to have had 2 years ahead of that for somebody to look back at you and be like, oh, this guy, interesting content or whatever. It's like, but you're never going to be as young as you are today. So get started if you're not, you know?
Yeah.
I'm going to be this young forever.
Yeah. And there's that. And you're not always going to know the most in the room. Right. And I think that's the biggest hurdle for a lot of people that are really hesitant on posting and commenting. There's like, well, there's probably someone that knows more than me. Yeah, absolutely. But if they're not talking, they're not being seen and not being heard, like there's a huge void for people that are able to share and be vulnerable on the platform to actually get ahead.
Yeah.
And let those people who know a lot get involved and comment, and everybody can learn from that. Right. And you just kind of think about the amazing conversations that happen when you throw out something. And again, I think that maybe if people are nervous about that, like you don't have to, put a flag in the ground and say, this is the only freaking way that this thing will work.
Yeah.
Then you'll get people to fight you, if you do that. But if you say, hey, I have some thoughts on this. We tried this. It kind of worked, kind of didn't. Like, what are other people doing? Right. And you put it out in that fashion and you create a healthy conversation. And hopefully you do get somebody who rolls in, who's an expert and says, I've been doing this for a long time. Here's some different things. Here's some ideas, and see where that can go, versus getting in a fight with somebody over, I have the best and the only way to do this.
Yeah. And Chris, you're right. And Brendan, it goes back to your point. Like, this is a very helpful platform, meaning people just want to help and they want to see you succeed.
Yeah. And
they typically will give away free advice. They'll give away connections. They'll do anything to help other people out because they understand that the more they give, the more they're going to get. Right. Yeah. And so there is this, like, they're giving, they know they're going to get something back. And so there is this, reciprocal motion machine that happens within the platform that people are starting to respect.
Awesome. So Sarah, she said, thanks, Chris. And you're welcome. Matt is a great one to follow. And I would agree. Matt, you mentioned, kind of your three pillars. Basically you're educating, You're informing, you're entertaining. I think inform was inspiring.
Yeah.
But so you got to have a little blend of all that, right? Because if you're all business all the time, like you said, people just kind of meh, if all you're doing is rolling that out. So, mixing in the personal, mixing in some funny stuff. Carter, you and I have a common friend, Brendan, you and I have a common friend, Carter Parrish. Carter's game is dad jokes. And it is, I don't know, one or two a day. And sometimes they're like, the full eye roll, like, oh, that was awful. And other times they're like really freaking funny. And he puts these little, video, GIFs and stuff with him.
Yeah.
And he's just, I see his post and I smile because I'm like, oh, I got an opportunity to laugh. Or my wife was having a crappy day a couple of months ago. She's like, somebody tell me a joke. I'm having a shitty day. And I literally went to Carter's page and I looked and I was like, here's 4 dad jokes. I stole them, but that's okay. And I told Carter and he's like, that's what they're there for. So anyways, it's great. It's a great way to get to know people. And as you were mentioning in the very beginning, it's like this platform allows you to go wide, and shows allow you to kind of go deep.
Yeah. Yeah. And, to touch on, Chris, what you were talking about before, as far as like educate, inspire, entertain, like below those content pillars are kind of the executable vehicles, right? And so you take all aspects of LinkedIn, from videos to GIFs to images to text only to polls. And that allows you to really kind of shock your feet and keep your community engaged with what you're going to post next, right? So you got to think of it almost like what's going to come next out of Brendan and Chris. It's like, now I've got my community guessing. And then, I'll leave with this, like polls are probably the most underrated opportunities on the platform to get the lurkers that are possible prospects out, right? Because now you're giving everyone an opportunity. And if you create your polls correctly, you can create hand raisers that will basically smoke out your prospects, right? And so now you've got a poll that's got a question, and it's like, you got several answers, and then you're going to be able to, from a marketing standpoint, pre-qualify the people that are answering to have your individuals in sales or biz dev reach back out to them and say, hey, I see that you may have an interest or you may have a problem here. Did you know this is what we've done in the past, right? It's those little things that kind of bring more activity to the platform and allows you to actually kind of weaponize those polls into revenue opportunities.
Fantastic. Well, I'm the timekeeper, and we are at 57.5 minutes. And this is I feel like it was like 20 minutes. Awesome conversation, as I knew it would be, Matt. As we start to wrap up, I guess the one thing that I want to kind of just throw over the bow here is, do you have one or two things? Maybe we've talked about it already. You want to put a bow on it, but some sort of an actionable item or a key takeaway, as it were, maybe that you want to leave for our listeners that they can kind of put in their front pocket and utilize.
Yeah. I talk to a lot of people that scratch their head on how they're going to continue to build, mostly in sales, but also marketing. And I think, when you can lean into being more relatable on the platform, and I think the relatability point needs to be really pounded home, is like, the more relatable you are, the more vulnerable you are on the platform, the more opportunities are going to present themselves. And I don't mean you got to cry on a camera and basically give a sob story. You just need to be relatable, right? You need to talk about, had a long wait at the airport today, ran into someone who's mean to TSA. Guys, give them a break. Like, just create like a moment of conversation in your day. And people are like, okay, now I can actually start a conversation. But the relatability part comes from the people. It doesn't come from the company, right? And so you really got to shift your mind into more of a content creator versus where you are today on the platform, which is just pushing solutions and trying to transact. You got to be a supporter. Awesome,
guys. We're at 1 o'clock, so we're gonna put a bow in this guy. Thanks, everybody. Appreciate it. Sarah is in the comments, and Holly, and Michael, and Millie, and Juana. So thanks, everybody, for checking us out. This show is immediately available, recorded here on LinkedIn. It's going to be on YouTube, and it also shows up on all of your favorite podcast platforms. It usually hits there by the weekend. So thanks everybody who's listened to this live. Thank you to the folks who are going to consume it and listen to it in the future. Please share it with your friends. Tell folks about it. We're trying to build a community here of like-minded, event marketers, of salespeople, of just general marketers. And we want to create an open, environment for learning, questions, and building relationships. So, Matt, where can we find you? Where can folks find you? On LinkedIn?
LinkedIn only. That's where I hang.
There you go. At Matt Williams. It's right there on the screen. Everybody connect with Matt. He's a great follow. He's got the surfboard in the back. You can check out his the surf scene in San Diego. You can learn about, how to spell go Tigers in the Louisiana fashion. And it just, he's a great guy. Enjoyed Matt having lunch with you a month and a half ago or so. And Brendan, can't wait to catch up in real life soon with you as well.
Yes. Awesome.
All
Thank
right.
you.
All right. Thanks, guys. Thanks everybody for coming, and have a great rest of your week. Cheers.
All right. Appreciate it, guys.